Hey, this is Miss Jimenez again. This is simplifying expressions, okay? This is what the video is going to be about, simplifying expressions. All right, so what does simplify mean? What does that actually mean that you're simplifying an expression? Well, what that means is that you're taking the expression and you're just making it more simpler. You're shrinking it down, making a really long sentence and making it shorter, okay? Well, we're going to be using two things, okay? Let me put this down. We're going to be combining like terms. And what combining like terms means is that you are going to take terms that are alike. That means that they are the same. They either have the same variable, they have the same variable and exponent, they are only constants. Now, I know constants, people think that that means that the number has to be the same. No, they just have to be numbers that don't have variables, okay? And then you're going to use integer operations to find their sum. So if they're negative, then you're adding a negative and a positive, things like that, okay? Okay. All right, so let's practice. So the first thing we're going to do, I'm going to move this so we can have it, is that we're going to identify and circle the terms. We're going to use different colors to distinguish those terms, okay? So, this little thing always. All right. Notice that I have red, and I circled the 4y and the 8y because they both have a y, right? So those are my like terms. Then I'm going to use integer operations, okay, to combine the like terms. Okay, if they don't have a like term, then I just bring it down. Okay, so 4 plus 8 is 12. I use the symbol right here. Now notice that I did 11 plus 12y. Okay, all I did was because I added the 4 and the 8 down here at the bottom. And I wanted it in alphabetical order. X goes first. All right, next one. I used a different color because I didn't want to use the same color that we used for the first one. I didn't want to use red. So I used purple, okay? And then I have the 8y and the minus 9y. So I'm going to use integer operations. That means I'm doing 8 minus 9. 8 minus 9 is negative 1. So I get negative w plus 4y. Now, I know that you're going to be like, wait a minute. You just said negative 1. Why is there not a 1 in front of it? You remember from last year or in 7th grade, I'm not sure in which grade, they told you that the 1 is imaginary. So we know that it's there. We just don't write it. Now, if a 1 wasn't there, then that means I would have a 0. I wouldn't have a letter. Okay? So if there's a letter, there's a 1 in front of it. Okay? There's no letter, that means that there's 0 of that letter out there. Okay? So when there's 0, we don't put a letter down. Okay, and like I said, notice that I put in alphabetic order and I kept their signs. All right, so here's another one. Okay, we circled, I used red, circled these two because they're like terms. They both have an N. And what's the imaginary number that I just said is there when there's a variable? A 1. So we're doing 9 minus 1. Okay, 4n squared plus 8n. And some of you are going to be like, why? They're both n. What's the deal with this? What's going on? This right here has an exponent. So I have to put them in order from highest exponent to lowest. Highest exponent to lowest. Okay, next one. 4w and 2w. Okay, 10w squared, because that's the biggest exponent that I combined in my like terms. And then 6w. And then this right here. Anybody notice what's going on? Anyone? This should not be a W. This needs to be an X. Now, just because all of these had W's doesn't mean that I changed that X to a W. The X is going to stay. It's going to be by itself. You just bring it down, okay? All right? Sometimes they're going to have different letters. They're not going to be using the same, just like on the other one, okay? Yes, they can have 3 different things. These are 3 different terms. So remember, this needs to go back and stay as an X. All right, distributive property. Well, what does a distributive property mean? That means that I'm going to have a number in front of the parentheses or behind the parentheses. It's going to be just right outside the parentheses, either in the front or in the back. And I'm going to multiply whatever that number is to everybody inside. Everybody inside needs to get multiplied by whatever's outside. All right, so here we're going to do some examples. First thing we got to do is identify the integer that's next to the parentheses, which in this example is 12. And then I'm going to multiply it to every term inside. Now, right here, I have a y. We just talked about that. The imaginary number in front of that variable is a 1. So I'm saying 12 times 1, which is 12y. Then I'm going to do 12 times the 6. That's just not a regular 6. It has a minus sign, so it's a negative 6. So I'm going to do 12 times negative 6, which would give me negative 72. So 12y minus 72. Why did I just go from negative to minus? Because I am putting something in front of that minus sign, putting something in front of that negative. If it was just by itself, it would be negative 72. But because I'm putting a term in front of it, we're going to say minus when we read it out loud. Next example, we have 8. We boxed the 8. That is the number I'm going to multiply everybody to. Okay, I'm going to multiply 8 times 2 right here. And then 8 times the imaginary number that is once again 1. So 8 times 1. So this gives me 16 plus 8t plus 4t. I have to combine like terms. So if you notice, the pattern is going to be distributive property and then combining like terms. So I check to see if I have like terms to do, and if I do, I combine them. So in this problem I do, I circle my 8t and my 4t, come out to 16 plus 12t. I was okay like that. Okay, there are going to be maybe some questions where they're going to have this variable in the front and the number in the back. Okay, it's okay. You're just going to, if you do that, you keep the signs with them. All right, let's do another example. Let me move my little picture so that y'all can see. Okay. All right, so first thing we do is we identify the number that is in front of the parentheses or behind it. What number are we going to be multiplying by? Notice that the number has to be 4 because this 8 has an operation in front of it. It has to be in front of the parentheses with no operation instead of the multiplication symbol that parentheses means. Multiply everybody inside by that 4. 16y minus 8, because the 2 also gets multiplied. Combine my like terms. Notice I used 2 different colors because in the other slide with combining like terms, I said you're going to use different colors to identify your like terms. Then I combine them. 3 plus 16 is 19. Sorry. 3 plus 16 is 19. Negative 8 plus 8 crosses out to 0. Okay? So I have 19y. My next problem, number 2. I identify what number am I going to distribute. Multiply, I get 16y minus 8. I circle what's going to be my like terms, and then I combine them. 8 plus 16 is 24y. Negative 8 plus 6, negative 2. So when I put them together, it's going to be 24 minus 2 because there's a term in front of that negative 2. Okay, error analysis. So sometimes this shows up on a test or on STAR. They want you to find the mistake. Okay, find the mistake. Okay, so that means you're looking carefully. The problem's already been simplified. You're looking carefully to see what was the mistake that was made and then correct it. Sometimes they just want you to identify where the mistake was, and sometimes they want you to actually tell them, hey, this is what the answer is supposed to be. Okay, so we're going to do some examples of those. All right, so here we have it. Okay, you're like, what they did fine. Ah, you think so, but they have an integer operation that was done wrong. 6n minus 10 should be a negative 4, not a positive 4. So my answer is going to be negative 4n plus 7y. On example at number 2 at the bottom, they did an error on the distributive. 5 times 1. And this is the most common mistake that happens. People always want to just multiply the first number in the parentheses, but it has to be multiplied by everyone. Okay, so there's 2 integers here, so it needs to multiply by those 2 integers. So 5 times 2 is 10. 5 times 1 is 5. Then you combine your like terms. So it's just going to be 4n plus 5. Okay. Here's another examples that we're going to do. All right. Combining like terms. 100 and 300, 400. 200 minus 400 should be negative 400. So, I mean, negative 200. So they did an integer operation that was done incorrectly. Okay? So it shouldn't be 400 plus 200y. It should be 400 minus 200y. Next thing, we distribute. All right, half of 8 is 4. Half of 12 is 6. All right, we're combining our like terms. Hey, we're not supposed to just put everything together. We can only combine if they have the same letter. So I should have two different terms because that's how many letters that I have. So they just combining like terms wrong. So it should be 14 and 10t gives you 14t. 6r and 25r gives you 31r. So 31r plus 14t. Okay, so we're done. All right, you have to identify the mistake below and write your answer in the discussion board. So these are the only two problems. It's in your discussion board. Tell me what the problem was. Where did they mess up at? How did they mess up? And redo the problem, okay? If you can't redo the problem, that's okay. All right? Just try your best to tell us, hey, this is what they made a mistake on, okay? This right here, tell us in words, what did they make the mistake on? Okay, if you can't tell us in words, but you're like, I do kind of know the answer, I can give you some credit for that, but I really need you to be able to express to me in words, where did they make the mistake? Okay, all right, bye.